this year?
I don't know.
All right, over to you, Smalls.
I mean, the Steelers just got eliminated, and they don't really like. It's not like they've been having these conversations. Like, now is time to have these conversations, if at all. He's got a year left on his contract. They have a decision to make this spring about an option year, so we'll have some sense of this pretty quickly. I don't get the sense that there is an appetite in that building for moving on. I don't get the sense there's an appetite from him for moving on. But again, the disclaimer is they don't operate that way. They were focused on trying to beat the Houston Texans last night and extend their season. Now that it hasn't happened, then they switch into this offseason mode. So we'll find out what he wants to do, what they want to do. Certainly, given what happened in Baltimore last week, you have to think anything is possible because, I wouldn't have thought that they were going to fire John Harbaugh. So if the Steelers decide, or if Mike Tomlin decides, or if they decide together that it's time to do something different, I think that's certainly within the realm of possibility. But you're asking me to guess which way it'll break. I'm probably going to guess that he's back.
What about Aaron Rodgers? Same question. Do you think this was the end for him last night, or could we see him try to come back for one more season?
I am not going to try and get in that head. I'm like, he's going to do what he wants to do. If he wants to come, he has said since before the season that he thought this would be the end. I guess we'll take him at his word on that. He's going to turn 43 during the season next year. Like, I just don't know what. If he's looking for some kind of storybook ending, I'm just not sure where that's going to be. Looking around the league and seeing the situation. So I guess if I had to guess on that one, which I do, I would say that's probably the end for him.
Yeah, it's weird. With Rodgers, he's one of the greatest players ever play. He should be a first ballot Hall of Famer unanimously. He's that good. And oddly, he's never going to have this storybook ending because I don't know that he's anyone's favorite player. Which is I'm talking about from a fan perspective. Like, it's a weird thing with him. The only way that there's a storybook ending is a God forbid scenario that Jordan Love gets hurt next year. Rodgers is sitting on the couch.
Oh, jeez.
No, I'm saying
he
comes off the couch and Joe
wins
Flacco's
one last one for the Packers.
Yeah, but that's the only way. And God forbid, let's not even think about that.
Yeah, let's not.
Let me go back to the Tomlin thing. I'm curious to know your thought on this take that I threw out there today. I'm sure it's going to be brilliant in your mind.
Leading the witness.
Mike Tomlin,
yeah,
I think his specialty is making something out of nothing.
Yes.
I don't know that the Steelers and Tomlin, to be fair, have ever actually leaned into giving him legitimately nothing. I actually think that's what the plan should be next year. Tear it all down, let him coach through it, build a 2-win team that he gets 5 or 6 wins out of, and you accomplish what you need to accomplish, which is stockpile picks, get high up in the draft, and get younger.
Reset, find the real solution at quarterback as opposed to this patchwork thing they've been doing the last few years. They tried. They took Kenny Pickett in the first round. It didn't work out. But, they just don't operate like that. It's just not – like, I remember covering the Giants, and obviously those two families are very close and very similar in how they operate. And, they just – obviously the Giants aren't intentionally doing it. They have these seasons now all the time. But the idea was that, no, we don't want to do like a pullback and rebuild because – we're still charging for tickets. Our responsibility is to put the best possible team on the field at every single opportunity. And I admire that. I think that's the way it should work. To your point, standing outside of it, could the Steelers benefit from a year like that? Yes, but I think it's going to have to happen accidentally. I don't think they're going to step back and say, we need to tear it down to the studs and accept losing for a little while, go all Houston Astros on this thing,
right,
and reset. I think they're going to continue to operate the way they, even if they do change head coaches, I think they'll continue to operate the way they do. That they seem to be reliable that way.
So then that's not necessarily a Mike Tomlin thing, because I think a lot of Steelers fans are trying to divvy up the blame and figure out who's culpable for this, as I say, the consignment quarterback carousel in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And people are wondering, how culpable is Mike Tomlin in that approach?
So that's the thing I always say. If you want to criticize Mike Tomlin for whatever role he has in roster assembly, then I think that's fair, because I think these have been substandard rosters when it comes to, postseason contention. I don't think there's maybe there's one, but I don't know for a fact that there's a game during this stretch where they haven't won a postseason game that they were supposed to win. They were the underdog. They should have been the underdogs last night. I don't know what the line was, but obviously they were not the better team. They were not close to the better team last year. Well, the last time they were in the playoffs. They're just. He gets the most out of what he's got. he has not had Super Bowl caliber rosters the last few years. If you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan and you still believe your team plays elite defense, I got news for you. You saw an elite defense last night, and it wasn't yours.
Yeah.
So, I think everybody has to step back and realize what we're doing here. They patched it together as well as they could. They're trading for Jalen Ramsey right before the season. They're signing Adam Thielen in December. Their whole thing is how do we win this week's game? And that attitude doesn't necessarily lend itself to building a team that's going to have success in January. It can, but they don't have that roster talent. So yes, I think to whatever extent Mike Tomlin's involved in picking the players, I think you can criticize him for that. In terms of the coaching of the team, getting the absolute most out of the players and the roster you have, I still don't think there's anybody better. I just don't think he's had very good rosters lately.
Okay, we talked a lot about Pittsburgh. Tell me about Green Bay. Matt LaFleur. Do you think he's coming back? Do you think they're likely to move on from him? How sticky is the money situation there? Tell us what you got, Graz.
Yeah, I don't know what's likely. I think anything's possible there, honestly. They're going to talk about an extension. It makes sense from both sides to do an extension. I think he's had success there. He likes it there. But the fact that it's still out there, the fact that there's 1 year left, the fact that the team president is new and may want to be putting his own stamp on things, I think it lends itself to some questions about how this is ultimately going to turn out. And I think those questions are fair and legitimate. So checking in on this yesterday, the sense I got was look, this is a contract negotiation. We all have a way we'd like it to work out, but there's no guarantee that it does. So I would say it makes a lot of sense for them to get an extension done, and I think there's a good chance they do, but I don't think we can say there's a 100% chance of it, because if there were, it would be done. So, yeah, I hate to not be able to give definitive answers. We are very early in a very weird coach hiring cycle. That, you throw John Harbaugh onto it, all of a sudden that becomes very unusual. And now we don't know what will happen in Green Bay, what will happen in Pittsburgh. That could make the whole thing even weirder and put candidates on the market that would be more appealing to teams than the ones they're currently talking to. So I think it's as much as people want answers about who's going to coach their team, I think we're a ways off with all these teams.
We're talking with ESPN NFL analyst, insider, outsider, Dan Graziano here on Unsportsmanlike. Just a quick thing on that. I think the reason it's so weird, this hiring cycle, is I don't ever remember a hiring cycle where the coaches that were fired still could be head coaches in the league next year.
Yes, Kevin Stefanski, Mike McDaniel. He's interviewing. He's interviewing in Cleveland. Obviously, Harbaugh.
And if LaFleur and Tomlin both are out, theoretically, you have 5 guys that could be head coaches next year. Let's talk about Harbaugh. Why did the Falcons announce that they interviewed him, but the Giants didn't?
So what happened with Harbaugh is last week he had sort of 20, 30-minute informal conversations with the general managers of the teams that had openings. And I'm talking about Tennessee, the Giants, Arizona, Tennessee, the Giants, Arizona, Cleveland, and Las Vegas. As of last week, Atlanta doesn't have a GM, and as of last week, Matt Ryan didn't have the president of football job. He got that on Saturday.
Right.
So the conversation with Matt Ryan and whoever they're just doing their search couldn't happen until yesterday because there wasn't anybody to have it with. So it's the same conversation he had with all those other teams last week. It's just Atlanta announced it as a formal interview, and I don't think that was necessarily what Harbaugh's side was hoping would happen. But Atlanta's like, look, we're going to announce everybody we're talking to. So Harbaugh at the end of this week and/or beginning of next week will have some sit-down, face-to-face interviews with all these or the teams that he's interested in, and Atlanta will still be one. But what happened yesterday, what Atlanta announced, is nothing more, as my understanding, than the contact he had with those other 5 teams last week.
This is what as soon as they released it yesterday, and I brought it up on our show today. And Smalls told a story 100 years ago when she went out for a meal, a drink, whatever it is, with someone, and then halfway through or after the fact, she realized, oh, that person thought that was a date.
Yep.
And John Harbaugh didn't know he was going on an interview.
You have read this correctly, from my understanding. Now, listen, I think Atlanta is in the picture. Yeah. I think Atlanta, Tennessee, and the Giants are probably the 3 strongest candidates for John Harbaugh right now, unless Green Bay opens, in which case I think that would be number 1. But I don't think the fact that Atlanta announced an interview necessarily positions them as the front runner to get him. I think the Giants or the Titans or the Browns or anybody that talked to him last week could have made a similar announcement, and it would have been the same thing.
Obviously, Matt Ryan, as you mentioned, is the head of football operations now. Does the fact that a GM is not in place yet work for or against Atlanta, that Harbaugh may have an opportunity to be influential in that decision?
You got 30 seconds. You got SportsCenter.
Okay.
It could work it could work in their favor if he has somebody in mind he wants to work with, but whoever that would be, Matt Ryan's going to be overseeing the operation. So I think you have to look at it as, if you're going to have to work with Joe Shane in New York, the equivalent is you're going to have to work with Matt in Atlanta, and you have to be okay with that. And again, John Harbaugh might be fine with any of that, but I think, the GM opening still existing means he could maybe have some influence on who gets that job, but whoever it is, I think is still going to report to Matt.
Dan Graziano will be on SportsCenter any minute, as well as Get Up at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Always a pleasure talking to Graz, and you'll enjoy where Graz used to live and where I used to live, by the way, in West Palm. The college football fans, get ready. Airstream Studio